Israel recruiting African refugees as human shields in the Gaza assault. Ethical concerns are being raised over reports that Israel is recruiting asylum seekers from Africa for life-threatening operations in Gaza. In exchange, Israel is promising permanent residency, but settled status won't be useful if you're dead. Sadly, some are asking, is that what Israel's counting on? According to Holot, none of the refugees who participated have been granted official status so far. There are about 30,000 asylum seekers in Israel, and many have already been used in various operations after a 2-week crash course in sort of how to invade or really how to commit genocide. The manner in which the Israeli army deploys the asylum seekers is barred from publication by the Israeli military censor. Refugees continue to face mounting pressure from anti-immigrant politicians, including Netanyahu, who calls them infiltrators. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. And I have a film coming out that spends a great deal of time dealing with this very question. But the long and short of it is Israel is a Jewish state, and it allows immigration to said Jewish state for Jews around the world. So if you are an Ethiopian from or a Jew from Ethiopia, if you're a member of the Beta Israel, not Falasha, but member of Beta Israel, you can make Aliyah now since the 80s, although there's all kinds of tensions and debates that we can talk about. But there are other Africans who are also struggling. I'll give you an example. Eritreans. I'll give you another example. Sudanese. And I've spent a great deal of time in Israel talking to Israelis or Sudanese people in Israel, and Eritreans in Israel, as well as Israelis about this. And it's a very interesting set of circumstances. Prior to this Gaza genocide, I think maybe one, and that's dubious, but I think maybe one African asylum seeker was given asylum, was given residency. The rest of them, they're not infiltrators, they're not undocumented, they're not illegal aliens, they're not any of these terms that the Israeli public and certainly the right-wing Knesset has used against them. These people are walking through the Sinai. These people are literally ducking bullets. They're going from Sudan or Eritrea into Egypt, and they're walking through the desert. They're walking through considerable danger. They're surrendering. They're getting captured, arrested, brought into Israel. And up until 18, I have to check the year, maybe 2017, they were brought to a place called Holot, which was a detention center, or no, it was an absorption center. It was a holding center for asylum seekers or for immigrants. But they were kept there and it felt like prison. I spent time in Holot. I have footage, I have interviews, I have a lot of stuff from Holot that I can talk about. And when you go to Holot, you realize what they're basically doing is making Sudanese and Eritrean people feel like prisoners to hopefully send them home or send them elsewhere because they don't want to be seen as deserving of refugee status. Now you say, well, why aren't they getting refugee status? Well, because Israel doesn't want to. That's why Netanyahu has used the language of infiltrator to describe them rather than refugee, because there is a conventional refugees. There are international rules about refugees, especially for so-called Western nations, developed nations, etc. And Israel has said, yeah, we take refugees. But they don't, though. Because what they do is they make a distinction between refugees and infiltrators. And the language of infiltrator actually begins, I believe, in 1951. I'm sick, so I may be off, but I'm gonna double check. I usually don't like to double check things live not because of ego, just because I like to be prepared. But I want to make sure I said 1951. 1954. The Prevention of Infiltration Law was a law created in 1954 to prevent unauthorized entry by armed and unarmed foreigners into Israel. Now, you might say, why would they create that in 1954? They created the Infiltrators Act to prevent Palestinians from coming home. So the Infiltrators Act was a direct attempt by Palestinians, by Israelis or by the Israeli state to prevent Palestinians from coming in. And so they say, oh, they're not refugees. Because again, they wanted to nullify the UN High Court for Refugees. They wanted to nullify what would later be UNRWA. And so they ultimately said, no, these people are infiltrators. And so now that same law from 70 years ago is being used against these Africans. And so when you go to Holot, let me see if I have any images of me in Holot. I'd love to. Y'all want to see some? Maybe I'll show y'all a little sneak peek of some footage. Let me see. Let me see if I got something for y'all. I feel like since I'm sick, the least I could do is maybe show y'all a little something, something. Nah, I don't have anything ready. I thought I did. I think I do. I just don't know where it is. Um, um, but either way, no, I do. I do. I do. I'll send it to y'all later. But I think it's kind of beautiful how sort of things are coming together and the world is paying attention to this awful tragedy right now of asylum seekers being exploited, being excluded, not being permitted to come into Israel. And then suddenly, Israel needs them. Suddenly, now that they need someone to do operations in Gaza, now they're acceptable. Now they're legible as citizens. Now they're permissible to come into the state. It's a fascinating circumstance, right? Why all of a sudden can these kids come in? Why all of a sudden can these young men and women come in and fight? It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. And we saw the same thing with the Hebrew Israelites. The Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem were rendered illegible as citizens. They were impossible citizens, as we talk about. And then when their kids started joining the IDF, suddenly the kids could get citizenship, and then the parents could get citizenship based on the kids. And so suddenly it was like, if you're willing to risk your body, if you're willing to die for this ethno state, then yeah, we can talk. But that's not the same deal that other people have to make. Now, everyone, it's a conscription army, so you could argue everybody who's an Israeli citizen has to fight. But that's not a condition of making aliyah. That's not a condition for being legally permitted to make aliyah. I mean, come on now. It's different. I'm willing to have that debate.